Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Patrick Duffy, and I'm very excited to be back in the beautiful Nasdaq studios overlooking Times Square in New York City. Today is part 3 of our series, Future Thinker, that runs in tandem with Design Pavilion, an annual event celebrating design, architecture in the New York City's Times Square during the NYC by Design Festival. Our series explores how agents of change, disruptors, and leaders in the design industry will shape tomorrow, and what they are doing today to make a positive impact on people and planet. My guests today are at the forefront of art and technology and communication and have been working together on projects developed for the renowned Nokie Bell Labs E.A.T Experiments in Art and Technology program. Domhnaill Heron is the global head of the E.A.T program, where he collaborates with the artistic community to push the limits of technology on the quest to solve the greatest human challenges that plague our world today. Also joining us is the E.A.T artist in residence Harry Yeff, who goes by REEPS ONE, a world-class beatboxer, composer, and multiple award-winning artist specializing in voice and technology-based performance, heralded as one of the most progressive lateral thinkers in the world of voice and technology now. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us in the studio of Nasdaq.
Hey.
How's it going today?
Great.
Good? Good?
It's like a summer's day in Ireland.
It's like, sorry.
Yeah, we feel very at home.
It's been a long, was it a long journey for you guys to get here, or?
Well, for me, I live in New Jersey, so
Okay.
not so much, but for this guy, a little bit further.
Yeah, I'm here for less than 24 hours, but it's going to be a great 24 hours. That's the main thing. I'm here to enjoy New York.
Yes, well, thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your schedule. Domhnaill, tell us a little bit about what you do. You have a really cool job at Nokie Bell Labs. Tell us about what you do.
Yeah, it's a fun job. So I'm a trained engineer. I did aeronautical engineering, so how airplanes fly. And magically, in a weird way, which is too long to explain now, I got into this role where I now run this program where we fuse art and technology. And really, it's all about humanizing technology. So how can we bring in that critical, artistic, philosophical thinking that artists like Harry have, and bring that in to help us think about our technology, how that technology will affect humanity. What are the downstream effects? Let's just say we create a new technology today. In 20 years' time, will that be a positive force on humanity, or will it be a negative force? And really, we find that that fusion of the artistic and the technological or the scientific has a lot of value to it.
Can you give us a little bit of the history, because there's a really unique history with the Nokie Bell Labs E.A.T program, and where that came from?
Yeah, so Bell Labs has a long running history of fusing art and technology all the way back to its earliest days in the 1920s, but in particular in the 40s, 50s and 60s with the immersion of new types of technology like the transistor and new ways to send and transmit information. We were able to lend a lot to the creative world. So a lot of big artists like Cage and Rauschenberg and others would have come to Bell Labs engineers and said, hey, I've got this crazy idea. Do you have a way to help me realize this? And then the Bell Labs engineers would invent new technology to enable their creative art form. So we go way back to many decades ago, having the first artist residencies of anyone in the world, doing a lot of deep collaboration. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. Other brands would tend to work with an artist, but maybe do a once-off activation, or maybe give them a new product, and after 2 weeks say, do something cool with it, and we don't want to see you again. We work with artists for a year, or even with Harry, we're working for longer than a year, 2 years now. So we do very deep, intense collaborations, so that we have that maximum knowledge exchange and that we get the best from both worlds, both from the artist informing the engineer or the scientist, and vice versa.
Tell us about what motivates the program at Bell Labs. How does that, what drives and how you find the artists and how you curate it and how the experiments come?
Sure, so the vision of the lab is that we want to go beyond the limitations of this form of communication. So if you think about it, this has served us quite well for some time from a humanity point of view, and this is a technology choice humans made many thousands of years ago. But this is very good for sharing information, but not so good at expressing or sharing emotion or getting deeper understanding between people. So one of the things that motivates the program today, and every artist we work with, like Harry and others, is how can we use their art form, their thinking, the ways they want to use technology or the way they use technology to further that mission, which is to create new ways for humans to communicate and go beyond the limitations of the modes we communicate today.
Before we get to the exciting work that you guys are doing together, can you give us a little bit of your history? You started as a performance artist. And
Yes, yeah, guys, my main specialism has always been the human voice.
Yeah.
I travel around the world performing. My love was to try and push the human voice as far as it could possibly go. And I think it's a massively overlooked idea, the expressive capability of the human voice. That goes beyond what I can do in the art I make. So all the pieces and the installations and the talks that I give are really to make people understand this fundamental aspect, this communicative tool that they have and can use every single day. And I think people use 20% of their vocal capacity.
Why do you think that is?
I think that we have many distractions. I think we are innovating at every angle, and it's so exciting. Bright lights are very attractive.
In the middle of Times Square.
Absolutely. This is a perfect example. And in all of that wonderful jungle of information, sometimes we miss fundamentals. And me speaking now, everyone listening is judging my voice consciously, subconsciously, and there's all these very intense old systems that are there. And to use technology and to create installations and to produce work that makes people realize the fundamentals that are already there, I think is a huge, huge, important mission. And for me, that's always my goal. So I use performance, I do really intense, I love vocal techniques. I started out as one of the world leading beatboxers, which is something you wouldn't see as moving into the space of voice and technology. But I use technology to make people think about the wonderful thing they can do with their voices.
How do you bring that to life? That's when I think from our viewers at home and somebody like me who's a bit new to the art form, how do you bring that to life? What's the process?
Well, I think being exposed to hyper-functional environments, so I've been very lucky to either speak or do a number of different artist residencies, but most recently using neural net technology to produce voices. So I was able to take an hour of me speaking and performing, and with Dada bots, produce this second voice that I could speak to. It spoke like me, sounded like me. And I think in that mystery and in the challenge of using a technology like that, I was able to represent a new type of relationship. So I find crest of wave technology, maybe things that are people excited and afraid of, and produce work to open people's minds. And that's always the goal. It's finding those mysterious, maybe inaccessible spaces and making it accessible via art and performance.
Yeah. Tell us about what you guys are doing together. How did this relationship begin? How did you guys come together to work at Bell? I'm sure it's a great story. So.
Well, yeah. So if you take my subjective story, I was performing and creating this installation work and had this obsession with how voices are evolving. And the first time I came and met with Domhnaill and the team at Bell Labs, there's such a rich history in exploring the human voice, and there's such a rich history in how that can be tested going back from the 30s. And you would never think that musical performance in the way that I do it, and my obsessiveness and the culture that I'm a part of, would actually have this deep harmony with the history of Bell Labs. So they gave me this huge opportunity to test what I'm doing in brand new ways. And there was almost this eureka moment, this like shock of how these two things came together and the type of work that we could produce.
Yeah, when we met with Harry, you know, we always start a relationship by having a conversation. And literally it was meeting in an office in Bell Labs in New Jersey, not very far from here, and just saying, hey, what do you do? Here's what we do. And straight away we just clicked, and there was a resonance there, and there were so many points of interest across almost everything we could have talked about that we just said we have to do something. So we worked on a project together for the last 2 years called We Speak Music.
Yes.
It's a documentary series that now you can view online, and that culminates in the very last episode of Harry creating his second self, so it's like an AI digital twin of him. And in the process, what's so interesting to us is that he trains this technology, so it's AI technology, or artificial intelligence technology. He trains it on his voice, but in the process, it gives him back things that spurs his own creativity. Now, he'll never say this, but I'll say it. He's one of the most creative guys I've ever met or worked with. So if you think about that, if this AI system can help him be more creative, what could it do for the rest of humanity? And this is something that really excites us, is the creative potential for AI. And it really upsets me with all this negative discourse around AI and automation and robotics, and there's a lot of negativity in the media around it. And we're using this as just one example to show the positive effects that this technology can have for all of humanity.
It's so fascinating. I can understand why it could be scary, but let's talk about potential. What do you think some of the potential of AI is?
Well, I think we we spend if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we spend so much time on the very lowest layers just trying to get through our existence on a daily basis. We don't spend any time self-actualizing or trying to reach that transcendent state. So if you think about that, we've so much opportunity and potential from a human point of view to reach up to those higher echelons, but yet all of our time is spent at the lower levels. So the question here is, how could we use this kind of technology to maybe help elevate all of humanity up beyond that? And what could we achieve from a human global perspective if we could enable humans to go beyond and not kind of be stuck down on the lower levels like most of us are?
Because I also think machine learning now, it allows us, I use this term pet self, so it's this amazing potential to take any hyper-specialism. So with me, it's my voice, and as I said, I push this to a huge extreme, where before it was much more rigid in concepts like chess and games were needed, data sets that were much simpler to train an opponent, a mentor, a collaborator. Now with machine learning, you can do that with anything. And I think the collaboration that we've done here shows an analogy for how people can have a new relationship with machine learning and AI, how they're actually able to grow a pet self, which pushes them in any direction, any skill set that they want to achieve in. And I think that is so exciting, and that's not a science fiction narrative. It's about artists coming in and creating real new narratives around this technology, and that's what I'm really interested in.
And that's another show, because I want to sit down and talk to you about that all together. But we don't have much time left, but I really want you guys to tell us about what's happening in Times Square.
So we, except for the rain, which is a shame.
What are you guys doing in Times Square? Let me be more specific.
Yeah, Harry was going to do a live performance just down in front of the Nasdaq building here of the second self. So he's going to do a live performance with his AI digital twin.
Oh my God.
But the rain has got in the way of that. So Harry's going to be doing that performance indoors just in the very next door over. So anyone that's out there listening around New York, please come and see this at around 4:15 p.m.
Okay.
But we will be showing some content on the front of the Nasdaq building as well, which is quite fun.
Which is so exciting. But we've generated thousands of hours with DataBots of this second version of my voice and showcasing the technology, some of the new ideas, and what we've been up to.
And Harry's going to talk about this critically though as well. Like, it's not just, you know, AI, whatever. He's actually going to talk about the merits and the downsides of this, and talk a little bit about how our thinking around AI and how it can be a force for good for humanity.
Super incredible conversation. Where can people find you? Can you tell people where to find you?
4 Times Square.
No, your social handles.
You go first.
Tell people where they can find you digitally.
You can find me on Instagram at REEPS ONE, REEPSONE.
Okay.
And Bell Labs can be found very easily on any of the social channels, just searching Bell Labs.
Okay. You guys, thank you so much for joining. I wish we had more time. The conversation's so exciting. I want to know all about how AI can change the world, because I believe in it. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a wonderful, fantastic afternoon here at Nasdaq with these two incredible gentlemen. I'm going to go down and see this fantastic performance, and we'll see you next time.